Hey Bookaholics, so welcome back to another video. Today I am bringing you a list of my top 10 favourite authors. From my top 10 favourite authors list, you are going to notice the absence of authors who have written books that I have loved. That is due to criteria. Basically, I need to have read something that is not set in the same world. I need to have read multiple works by this author and they cannot be in the same world. A prime example of this, for example, being John Gwynne, where I have loved The Banished Lands, but I have only read books in The Banished Lands. Also authors like Joe Abercrombie and Robin Hobb, where I have actually read something from another series of theirs. In Robin Hobb's case, I have read the first book in the Soldier Son series, and in Joe Abercrombie's case, I have read something from the Shattered Sea series, but I didn't like them. So I need to have read multiple works by this author that is not set in the same world that I still have loved. I have 3 honourable mentions as well. The first one being Harley LaRue, who is the author of mostly the Losers series, but I do also really like the Souls trilogy. And this one, basically, the comparison is a bit odd because I read Harley LaRue for mindless emotional fun. I'm reading it just because I want to feel an emotional connection with some characters, and I'm most likely to just keep rereading books that I already own that I really love. So I didn't really feel like this is necessarily the favourite author in the same vein as everyone else, but I still love and I keep going back to them. Another author who is quite out of my comfort zone in terms of genres, but that I do still genuinely love reading, is Fredrik Backman. I have read And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer, and I have also read the Beartown series by this author, and they're very emotional reads. They're ones that I find to be very emotionally cathartic as well if I'm not doing too good mental health wise, but they're not really stories that are well within my comfort zone, and therefore to compare them to these other authors who are ones who fit well within the parameters of what I'd usually read, it felt a bit strange putting them on here. And the exact same thing can be said for Jane Austen. I have read so many books by Jane Austen. I've read everything that she has written. I have loved everything that she has written, and therefore I am happy to say that she is one of my favourite authors. But she is sadly no longer writing, and also it is not my usual comfort zone genre. These are ones that feel very separate to my usual reading taste, and therefore I always think of it slightly differently, and therefore comparing it to the ones that are on the list again just felt a bit strange. But now actually getting into my top 10 authors. At number 10, I have Lumen Reese. Lumen Reese is the author of several stories that I have read, including Monster Midwife, Fault, To You Shall All Flesh Come, and my most recent and absolute favourite of hers, Witchwife. This author is someone who really does tackle her themes head on. She is someone who has a conversation with every single book that she writes. She also completely does her own thing with tropes. She'll take a trope and spin it on its head several times until you're dizzy and it's unrecognisable. And I love it. I love the way that she tackles world building in this one, or character work. The concepts that she comes up with are always super innovative, and I've loved everything that I've read by her. I would say that is my personal favourite, but that is because it's part of a series. All of her other stuff is standalones, and I'm a series kind of girly, so obviously we're allowed to get even more like meatier, and there's so much more to it in this one than you would get in a standalone. But I think that her concepts, like To You Shall All Flesh Come, is about harvesting organs from vampires. How cool is that as a concept? Every single time there's just been something in her books that I just think is incredibly unique, and she's a really underhyped author. She has a very, very particular writing style that I can understand maybe wouldn't work for everyone, but try a chapter. Go read one of the free samples that you can find on Google and just check out her works, because they are absolutely incredible. And as I said, very, very unique. Talking of unique authors, I couldn't have a list without including Toni Morrison. I can include her now because I had basically only read the Beloved trilogy, which is this one, Paradise, and Jazz. But last year I also read The Bluest Eye, and that's not part of a series, so she can now go on the list. I absolutely love Toni Morrison's writing style. I love the depth of emotion, the depth of soul that all of her books have, the way that she conveys a story and the emotion of it, the way she writes such unique and compelling characters, obviously all while posing some really important social commentary and theories. And I really love the way that she has these really messy characters, and she shows the messiness of the world in a way that's still beautiful but horrifying. And I love reading her books, and I am so sad that there is a finite amount of them. Another author who I only have a finite amount of works left to read is Octavia E. Butler. This author is just someone who I am obsessed with her brain. Her brain is just so fascinating to me. She wrote Kindred. I've also read the Earthseed duology, and I've also read Seed to Harvest series, and I love everything that she has written because she presents such unique ideas and such unique concepts, even in an oversaturated genre like fantasy and sci-fi now, even in dystopia. Everything that she has written has felt completely unique. She writes tropes that I hate, like time travel, and does it masterfully. I can't stand time travel. It's one of my most hated tropes ever. I love Kindred. Kindred is about time travel. She takes into consideration the butterfly effect. She takes into consideration the social, historical impact, and that's the point. Not only does she not shy away from it, which many, many authors do, she actually makes it the central point. And I love that. The fact that she's discussing the effects of the time travel is exactly what I want to be reading. So many things in her works I just think are breathtakingly unique, all in this masterful writing style. Again, I'm so sad that I have a finite amount of books left to read of hers for the first time because I wish there were more. An author who is odd to be on this list because I have only read 2 of her works, but they were definitely standout pieces of fiction, and that is Erin Morgenstern. I have read the 2 books that she has put out, which is The Night Circus and also The Starless Sea. They are beautiful, whimsical, literary fantasy romances, and they're both incredibly different. One, which is The Starless Sea, is on the verge of academia, not quite dark academia, but academia. And then you have The Night Circus, which is a magical, whimsical Romeo and Juliet. This one's Victorian, the other one is contemporary. We have such differences between the two, and yet you could read any passage and you would know this book is an Erin Morgenstern book. Just the way she tells a story. In this one, you also have a second person POV, which is you walking through the circus. All it is it's taking you through the circus. With your ticket in hand, you follow a continuous line of patrons into the circus, watching the rhythmic motion and the black and white clock as you wait. Beyond the ticket booth, the only way forward is through a heavy striped curtain. One by one, each person passes through it, vanishing from sight. Like, it just takes you through the circus. That's all it does. And yet it's beautiful. It's stunning. The descriptions of things. Like, me and my parents really did bond over reading Erin Morgenstern. So I love reading her books and I highly recommend you check them out. I'm sure I'm not the first person to tell you that. Returning to themes for a moment, we have Becky Chambers. Becky Chambers is the kind of author that definitely will talk heavy-handedly about her themes because it will be talking about how she perceives the world. And I really appreciate that. I really love an author that is wanting to discuss the world almost from an outsider's perspective. And it will be from huge things like the way that we conduct ourselves in regards to children versus the elderly, that we will protect children more than we would protect the elderly, and how a different species might see that as ridiculous because we can reproduce all the time, but the knowledge of the elderly will be lost. It also tackles even small things, like, for example, one of the conversations that is had is about cheese and people that are willing to literally take medicine so that they continue to eat cheese and things like that. There are so many conversations that are had in this series that I really, really appreciated. Even people who don't normally read sci-fi, I think, will really appreciate her books because they feel like slice of life and they're really gentle, but at the same time very forceful with their themes and the conversations that she's trying to have, and I really appreciated that balance. Another author who I have not read a huge amount from, but what I have read has been completely worth putting them this high on the list, and that is Rivers Solomon. This book, The Deep, is one of my favourite books ever. I think I never know where to put it on any of my lists because it's a novella, but I would happily reread this every single year. I have actually, even on the times where I don't really bother putting it in a wrap up anymore or continuing to talk about it because I feel like a broken record. I have read this book every year since I've owned it, and I love it. The connection I have to these characters, the emotional impact. But then on top of that, I also read Sorrowland by River Solomon last year, and it was one of the most incredible reading experiences. Reading River Solomon writing about motherhood while discussing things like gender, discussing things like race, discussing so many other important things and linking that back to motherhood really grounded it for me because I am a mother and therefore I always find that I connect more with maternal characters. It's just how the psyche works. And I really, really, really did appreciate reading all of these themes handled in such a way that I found really emotionally impactful. So I love reading River Solomon. I think that they are one of the most exceptional writers at the moment, and I really need to buy everything that this author has ever written. Another author who I have only read a few of their works, I've read 2 series and 1 standalone at the moment, but would really like to read more, and that is Nnedi Okorafor. Nnedi Okorafor is responsible for the biggest literary devastation I think I've ever read in this book, Who Fears Death. This has got to be one of the most emotionally impactful books I think I have ever read. And I absolutely adore the way that she'll tell a story, the descriptions that she will give, the way that she will make you feel incredibly invested in every single person on page. She created an entire community here in Who Fears Death. She created an entire friendship group in Akatawich. She created an entire group of friends, I suppose you could call them, in Binti, and every single time I feel really emotionally invested. All of these characters are in themselves laced with themes, with conversations. They are all people that feel like people, and therefore the same way that all people come with their emotional baggage and we could all be a conversation in and of ourselves. That's how all of her characters feel. You could have a huge thematic discussion just analysing each one of her individual characters before you get into the plots of her stories and the themes that she is putting forth within the narrative. And I love that. I feel such a deep connection to her characters, and I need again to read everything that this author has written, and I intend to slowly work my way through. I think between Nnedi Okorafor and Rivers Solomon, they're the kind of authors that I'm always a bit scared to keep picking up their works because I don't want to run out, because I love the excitement of having another one on the horizon, which sounds ridiculous, I know, but it's just how I feel about their works. I don't want to run out. I don't want to not know that there's another one coming out sometime soon. So I kind of always put off reading more of their stuff, and the emotional impact of their books as well always means that I need to be in the right headspace to read them. At number 3, I have Myra Grant. Myra Grant is an author I just find incredibly compulsively readable, so addictive, and yet I always love the conversations that she's having. By this author, I have read Into the Drowning Deep. I have also read the entire Newsflesh series, which includes all of the side stories and the extra novel, and I've also read the Parasitology trilogy. So I've read quite a lot by Myra Grant, and I really wish that she would be bringing more series out, I'm not going to lie. I know that she's mostly focusing on writing under Shauna Maguire at the moment, but I really love her Myra Grant stuff because the science feels so grounded that it is actually terrifying. And I love that because it gives room, in this case, it gives room for social discussion. In the case of Parasitology, it has discussions around ethics and morality, especially within medical practice. And then with the Newsflesh series, we have political discussions, all of which are rooted in science. Now, obviously, the science is made up. In this one, we have killer mermaids. In Parasitology, we have parasites that start taking over humans. And in Newsflesh, we have zombies. But the science is done in such a way, explained in such a way, if you blink, you might just believe there could be zombies. You might just believe there could be terrifying murderous mermaids. You might believe that you are already a parasite that has taken over a human host. And I love it. I love the way that she will make you question the reality that you know, make you question everything, because it's based in logic, all while having a huge commentary around medical malpractice, around consumerism and capitalism, around the political sphere, around the way that the media presents political crisis, the way that we discuss science, the way that we discuss different approaches to what we are and aren't willing to share with the public. There are so many things that I think are just handled so incredibly well through incredibly believable and well-rounded characters. And I just have a great time reading about them, really. We have an author that I always enjoy reading, while at the same time makes me have a slight existential crisis. Coming in at number 2, returning to the themes of motherhood that I was talking about earlier, an author that has never failed to devastate me is Anna Smith Spark. By Anna Smith Spark, I have read her entire Empire of Dust trilogy. I've also read A Sword of Bronze and Ashes, and my personal favourite, which is A Woman of the Sword. Anna Smith Spark tends to write about, in the case of her writing about women, they tend to be very, very flawed women who are really, really going through some stuff. And I really appreciate that, because they are normally mothers. I think all of the key women that she writes about are mothers either from the start or become mothers in the story. And it is the way that you are compromised, the way you cannot help but be compromised as soon as you create a life, and the responsibility that comes with creating a life, and the way that that can weigh on you, the way that motherhood feels like an extra skin that you have to wear. So many different approaches to it and conversations around it that I just think are incredible. Anna Smith Spark also has a gorgeous writing style, some of my favourite prose within the fantasy genre. It's just so beautiful. And she writes epic fantasy, which is one of my favourite genres. It is my kind of quintessential genre, but it's done in a way that I've not seen done by anyone else. And last, but the quite opposite of least, we have my, at the moment at least, all-time favourite author, the author that I will read their shopping list if they put it out, and I love everything that I have read by them, and that is, of course, N.K. Jemisin. I have read the Broken Earth series by N.K. Jemisin. I have read the Inheritance trilogy. I've read the Dreamblood duology, and I've also read some of her short stories. I need to read everything that this author puts out. Everything. I have one duology and one book left. I have the Great Cities series and How Long Till Black Future Month. Those are all I have left of N.K. Jemisin. And I cannot tell you how much I keep putting off reading either of those books, well, books or series, because I am terrified of not having another N.K. Jemisin book on the horizon. The way that this woman tells a story, the way she will weave some of the most immaculate characters to do so, the way her writing style feels like home to my brain. I will pick up an N.K. Jemisin book and I'll feel like I'm home. It will feel welcoming. Even when you're reading the most horrific things, this story opens with a murder of a child, and yet it feels so raw, so real, so enrapturing that I am immediately there. I am with this mother. I'm crying with her. I don't know her. And the power that she has with words, the way that she is so capable of making me feel so many things, make me think about so many things. She presents so many important real world topics through the lens of fantasy, with that one step removal that we can look at it and question it and think about it. And sometimes we agree and sometimes we don't, but she's incredible. She's an incredible writer. Now, she is not going to be for everyone. I understand that her writing style is very, very particular. What she chooses to focus on is potentially not the most exciting and glamorous aspects of SFF. But every single award she has isn't enough, because she is just above and beyond anything I've ever read. And I cannot talk about how much I admire her as an author in a way that I would be able to make you fully appreciate how much I appreciate her. So, N.K. Jemisin, number 1 author. And there you have it. I'm really sorry that I've been losing my voice throughout this. I'm sorry about all of this. I'm still unwell. I probably will be for a little while by the look of it. It's like I've got long COVID, but the flu version? I don't know. So I'm really sorry about all of this, but I hope that have encouraged you to pick up one of these authors and check out their works, especially because doing this list, with me being able to remove some of the authors that I like their works because of a world they've created. With me removing that criteria, I feel like I'm able to talk about a wider variety of authors than I usually would. So I thought that this would be a good video to encourage you to pick up something by one of these authors. But that is all for me for today. So let me know if you've read any of these authors and your thoughts on them, or based on my liking of these authors, have you any others that you would recommend I check out? I will hopefully catch you in another video soon. Bye.